if we are empowered with creativity, with collaboration, with all of the skills that come from practicing the arts, that will lead to the breakthrough ideas.
Welcome to Arts Engines. I am your host, Aaron Dworkin, and with us today as our guest, we have Trey Devey, who serves as president of the Interlochen Center for the Arts, which is also one of our creative partners here at the show, helping us to curate our topics and our guests for Arts Engines. Trey, welcome to the show.
Aaron, thanks for having me.
And of course, I have to share with all of our audience, any who may not know, because it is, of course, one of my biggest honors to do this particular show and this particular interview with this particular guest and this particular partner, because I am a very, very proud alum of the Interlochen Arts Academy. And as I often say, I credit Interlochen with saving my life. So it's actually really a joy to be able to talk with you about the role that Interlochen plays, which I think these days, in some ways, really needs to be different than the role that it played for me, because life is different, and the lives that, you know, your graduates these days will experience will be different than, you know, the things that I experienced after I graduated. So I figure I'll just start off right there, which is, you know, as you think about your imperative of preparing, you know, the young artists for the world, that world is by definition rapidly changing. So how do you do that? How are you thinking about that today?
Yeah, well, first of all, Aaron, we hold you up constantly as a great example of a product of Interlochen and Interlochen Arts Academy. And you know, I would say that truly you are an example of the type of leader that we hope to develop here at Interlochen. It is a topsy-turvy world that we live in. The decades ahead will be ones of increased automation, artificial intelligence. It's going to be a wild ride for all of us. And so when we think about what is the one thing that we can do for our students is to develop the next generation of creative change makers. You fit into this category, and truly you are a model of what we hope to nurture here at Interlochen. So what does that mean? It means that yes, we're a training ground for great artistry here. A young person will come here and they will get better at the trumpet or violin or as a visual artist, but creative capacity is at the heart of what we develop in our students. Interdisciplinary perspective, collaboration is at the core of what is developed here at Interlochen. This global and cultural perspective by having young people from around the world and different backgrounds coming here. All of these things are the makings for community and citizen artistry. And we believe those will set our students up to be a force for positive change in our world.
Wow, it's so critically important. And so you mentioned a host of things, right? And especially some of those things, it seems, in the world that they're going out into relate to technology. How do you look very specifically at technology and either students' access to it or their development of, separate from their core craft, the kind of technology that will exist in the world that they go into?
Well, I think, you know, we have students with us at such a really precious moment in their lives. Generally, the students are here in the camp from the 3rd grade and through the boarding school through 12th grade. And really the idea is to develop these foundational skills, which I'd say is, you know, more important than the technical skills with technology, although of course with the curriculum here and in so many places, the technological capacities that are on our campus are just accelerating year in and year out. But it's really sort of these basic building blocks of how do we relate with one another in a world that is so divided. If we can do that, how many steps ahead are we as a society in solving these most vexing problems? How do we look at something from a different angle, to take a step back and say, it's always been approached this way, but as an artist, we're going to look at it from a different perspective. Those are the sorts of things that we feel are timeless, because as we know, the technical skills are going to change dozens of times over the coming years. Those will be adopted and practiced over the years, but it's those fundamental areas that we hope to develop in our students.
Yeah, when I look back, I think, some of my closest friendships to this day are the friendships I developed at Interlochen. And interestingly, I came, and initially one would have thought, well, I'm going, to the woods of northern Michigan. There won't be, any diversity or anything like that. Interlochen was more diverse than the town that I came from in Pennsylvania. And of course, especially the international component, being able to interact with fellow young students in the arts, but from, vastly different countries and cultures was again, part of that very unique experience. Could you kind of speak a little bit more about kind of this sense or where you see the importance of how the arts depicts people's culture, right? We're in this such a divisive society. Do you feel that there's a role on the part of educators, educational institutions, to actually have that be part of artistic training? Like, yes, we're teaching you the notes, rhythms, the brush strokes, the artistic medium, the dance steps, but also it is part of our responsibility, or do you feel it is, to say, how are you speaking with your art? What are you saying with your art? What is your role as an artist in the broader society? How do you feel about that? And how does that get incorporated at Interlochen?
Yeah. Well, the idea of citizen artistry, I know, is an expression that is in vogue. But I think it's such a powerful concept, and one that we have fully embraced. It's been a defining theme for the classes of the Academy in recent years, to think about, how do we engage with the communities that are around us, to really create an open dialogue, to listen, to understand where is someone coming from, and how can our art enliven that perspective and create new ideas that can develop through those conversations. It's interesting in this time, Aaron, where we're in the midst of this pandemic, and there's a question of what are the hierarchy of needs that we have as a society, right? And what should be prioritized? And can the arts just wait, right? Can it wait for all of the other problems to get solved? And in my view, and what I've seen from our alumni, is that the arts are the answer. They are the answer. If we are empowered with creativity, with collaboration, with all of the skills that come from practicing the arts, that will lead to the breakthrough ideas. It used to be like you'd go into a record store when record stores existed, and everything would be sealed off and segmented. Now the world is completely opened up to us, and the breakthrough ideas come from, and I say this to a Renaissance man, the breakthrough ideas come from pulling from all of these different areas and saying, what can we create with music and visual arts and dance and theater, by bringing all of these things together. And likewise, those are the things that will create the breakthrough ideas in any number of fields. So, the arts are the answer. It's not a secondary or a nice to have.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, could not agree more. And I think not only is that this underlying reality, but the way in which you articulate it, I think it's sometimes so important for those in our field who are leaders to be able to articulate just as you did, so that we can convince policymakers and others of this importance. So that's kind of, when we think about Interlochen in the institution, but also here on Arts Engines, we also like to capture the sense of the arts leaders themselves as individuals. And so I was just kind of curious, as you go about your work, where do you find sources of strength, of inspiration when things might be challenging? I can't even imagine the challenges, right, that you've had to go through related to the pandemic. What do you tap into when you find that you have the greatest challenges ahead of you?
Yeah, it's a great question. And, so often I think arts institutions, educational institutions come at this from perhaps a bit of a deficit mindset of what are all the things that we don't have? And if we had $5 extra, what would we do with those resources to move us forward? The thing that we are most resource rich is in the breadth of our stakeholders. So I think about a place like Interlochen, where we've got students and families and faculty, staff, trustees, volunteers, from all over the world, so many different perspectives. And to me, that is our greatest strength. And my dad said when I was younger, he said, "Trey, God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth, so listen twice as much as you talk." And, that lesson has stuck with me. It's sometimes hard to do in a leadership role, but really try and when a couple nights ago was with our student representative board, and here are kids that are living this experience day in and day out. And the gold that came from that conversation was just incredible. Likewise, you get a parent's perspective, and so it's such a source of strength. And I think it's the leader's role to take all of that and synthesize it and say, okay, based on all of this information, what are the key priorities for us right now? What are the through lines that we can draw from all of this information? And that's, I think that's the tricky piece and the invigorating element of all this as well.
All right. And so, unfortunately, we're just about running out of time. But when you look forward,
Yeah.
and let's say vaccines are as successful as we all desperately want them to be, and things come back to normal, if not fall of 21, fall of 22. Do you feel like there are any things that might still stay the same? In other words, obviously I can only imagine that the residential component, all right, of Interlochen is so key. The live human to human interaction between students, with faculty, et cetera. But do you think there's some things that might carry over even once there isn't the pressure of a pandemic? Will Interlochen be a different institution? Will it teach differently?
Yeah. Absolutely. I can't imagine any institution that is not going to be profoundly impacted by what we have just and are going through. I wish I could refer to it in the past tense, but we will forever be changed as a result of this. I think that what I've learned from all of this is that the creative energy that exists in this community is second to none. When we were entering into our 93rd season of camp and had to cancel in-person instruction for the first time in nearly a century, for the team to pivot, and we thought we'd get a few hundred kids with Interlochen Online, and we ended up with 1,500 young people that would not have had that mission moment if it weren't for the adaptability of the team here. So I think we've got now new avenues to connect and create access and opportunities for young people that we really hadn't fully envisioned before. That's a lesson that all of us, I think, are taking from this moment. But we all have so much more in us than I think we ever fully appreciated. And it's the challenge of the leader right in this moment is we've got to use the chess analogy, we've got to protect our queen right now so it's not taken, but we also need to think 4 moves ahead because the scenarios are so complex, so that we arrive on the other side of this even stronger and better able to serve our communities.
Trey Devey, you truly are one of the great arts engines that is powering human creativity in our field. Thank you so much for joining us here on Arts Engines.
Thank you, Aaron. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.